Welcome back. On November 27th, a search warrant was served at the Catholic Diocese, Archdiocese of Galveston-Houston. Montgomery County investigators were seeking vital evidence regarding allegations of sexual abuse against Conroe area priest Manuel La Rosa Lopez. With multiple abuse scandals plaguing the church across the country, most recently in western Pennsylvania, the La Rosa Lopez case has drawn heavy coverage, especially since this major urban diocese has thus far avoided the scrutiny and allegations of widespread cover-up. But with prosecutors gaining access to diocesan archives, longtime Houston missionary Annie Hickman says a much wider reckoning is certain to unfold.
I believe they know that there's going to be a lot more in those archives, and again, being in and around the Archdiocese for this long, I know many cases that surprisingly have never made it to the news.
Jess, start us out on this.
I actually watched on Fox 26 Facebook Live Brett Ligon's remarks on the steps of the Chancery when he was there to retrieve documents. And he said that he's going to take this investigation wherever it leads him, wherever it leads the prosecutors in the DA's office there in Montgomery County. And he said that the Cardinal DiNardo has been cooperative. And the question is, have everyone that he works with being cooperative? And so I think Ligon is going into this with the best, clearly doing his job. This is a scourge on the Catholic faith, and it is something that needs to be purged. The victims in this case, clearly criminal, and they need to have recourse and justice, and they need to have closure.
Okay, let's be clear here. They copied the entire server. They took 15 computers, 20 boxes of those legal boxes. Nyanza, what does that sound like to you?
It sounds like they already knew what they were looking for. They're going to find exactly what they're looking for, and they're just going to make sure that they build the case with time and effort to make sure they don't get this thrown out on a technicality. They want to make sure this is due process, but at the same time, I remember when the Boston Globe came out and exposed everything 20 years ago about what was going on with the Catholic Church and the children that were being affected and the people being affected. And the sadness that we feel. I'm not even a Catholic, but I'm a Christian and I'm a human being. So I have to be empathetic to the victims, and I have to be also empathetic to the people who are forced to be quiet for fear of retribution against them. A lot of the people, there have to be lots of witnesses that knew what was going on. If they're involved in the cover-up, they have to go to jail. They have to. You cannot just repent. You must serve time.
Bob, close us out on this.
Breitbart News has been covering this very extensively, as we have other incidences around the country. Hats off to the district attorney for taking this action, but my question is, where is the Harris County district attorney on this? Where is the Dallas County district attorney on this? Where are district attorneys in the other major cities in this state? Because this isn't just happening in Houston, this is happening all across the state.
Okay, we're going to follow it. Under the category, when the Lone Star State ain't so great, Texas once again leads the nation in the number of kids with no health coverage. In fact, 1 of every 5 American children without health insurance lives in our state. And the situation is getting worse. More than 830,000 Texas kids are unprotected. That's nearly 11% of the population under 18 years of age. Also reported this week, an increase in our state's so-called rainy day fund to more than $12.5 billion. I'm going to start with Bill King on this.
I think it was Bertrand Russell, a famous American philosopher, that said that any civilization that did not value its children would ultimately fail. And I feel like that's becoming more us all the time. But laying aside doing the right thing, let's just forget about doing the right thing for a second. Let's talk about doing the smart thing for a second. Does anybody think that not providing preventative care for these children is not going to increase the ultimate cost they're going to be to the system? I mean, the incidence of diabetes among these children is going to be terrible. All sorts of preventable childhood diseases that are going to end up with serious cases. They're going to end up in the public hospital system, and we're all going to pay through the nose for it. This is absolutely one of those situations where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Tomaro, we live in a community that has the Harris Health, and we have a safety net. But are there folks out there in the neighborhoods who don't have any coverage at all?
Absolutely, and the problem is not so much as he said about doing the right thing, it's the color of what they view these children, and that's why they're indifferent. Why the state is not taking the Medicare from the federal government, it is unconscionable. You know, logical consequences are the scarecrows of fools and the beacons of wise men. If you don't do preventative, just like Bill said, you will end up, instead of a symptom, you'll end up with the crisis.
Okay, but is the answer to expand a federal program, or should we do more on the local level, like we had
We
for
pay
years?
tax. We pay taxes.
No, absolutely. We need the Medicare the expansion because think about it. Their parents are not insured. Hence, they are not insured. So for each one of those children, if you have a mother, then she doesn't have insurance either. So what that tells you, if we have 1 in 5 children that don't have insurance are in Texas, then add another parent to that. That's at least 1.8 million people that are walking around without health insurance. What that means is that they're not getting vaccinated. They're not getting their flu shots. They're getting the common cold that can lead to the flu, that can lead to death. They're not doing the things that can keep them out of the doctor's office later. And then what's going to happen when they have a pre-existing condition later on, when they finally do get their citizenship, if that's what we're going for, they won't be able to qualify for health care.
We're going to talk more about it. Bubbling to the surface this week, an effort by Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner and the city's Office of Education Initiatives to potentially take control of multiple academically struggling HISD campuses. Dubbed the Coalition for Educational Excellence and Equity in Houston, the city-driven nonprofit appears poised to pitch the HISD board on surrendering the campuses and allowing their transformation into what looks like charter schools supported by private sector partners. Critics fear this outsourcing will lead to privatization. Bill, take over before I die.
Well, look, I think this is a fabulous idea. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? We have a city administration that solves 6% of the burglaries, hadn't balanced the budget in decades. In response to widespread flooding, continues to spend half the drainage fee on something else. I mean, what could possibly go wrong with this plan? I mean, this is the most idiotic thing I've ever heard of. Look, in Texas, we elect independent school board members to run our schools, and there's a good reason for that. It was a reform, actually, way back in the 20s that we adopted. If you don't like the way HISD is being run, then go elect new school board trustees. Don't turn it over to some other incompetent, corrupt administration.
Tony, we saw an effort at bringing in charter partners for these schools before. It failed. Why is this different? Do you support it? What do you think?
Well, and here's the other thing. The clock is ticking. So this plan is obviously not perfect, but we have to get creative quick, because I think all of us as Houstonians should agree that the school should not close, because that's central to a community. And also, the Texas State Board of Education should not come in and should keep its noses out of our business in our own backyards. With that said, again, I want to remind folks, we've got to decide by February 2019. I think we should definitely talk to the community. We should go through and ask all the teachers who've had a good experience there, who are beloved, what they should do. I also think across the board, we're talking about predominantly African-American schools. There should be African-American history, African-American literature in every school, K through 12. And on top of it, we should make inroads where people from the community can get involved as mentors, as tutors, and really make it a community project. But we have to do it now.
Okay, real quick.
Here's the deal. We didn't want the state government coming in. Why do we want the city government coming in? I like charter schools, okay? I think they have a lot to offer. If this is the best solution the city can come up with, let's not forget, it is not the job of the city to be doing education reform, period. Like Bill said, we have an independent school district. This is why we have them. And now this administration, this Turner administration, brought in a czar, an education czar, with Juliet Stepesh, that lost her HISD race, is now heading this program up. This is insanity.
Okay, I got to leave it there. We're going to talk about it again. I promise you tomorrow. Still ahead, our panel answers the question, what did we miss? Along with a special message from Mr. Bill King. Stay with us.